Welcome on in, everyone. It's Malliem back with another weekly horror story. If you've got a story you'd like to share, feel free to post it to my subreddit linked below. We're picking back up with Murder is Legal in My Town, but I Am Yet to Kill Someone, Part 4. If there's a Part 5, leave a comment and let me know if you want more. If you enjoy the show, hit that sub button for me. It helps a lot. Thanks! The most painful aspect of being Brightwood's Elle was that my memories were never fully erased. Elle was in full control that morning. It was hard to push her away when there was nothing to go back to. I was either her or no one. There was no in-between. The in-between I thought I found had been ripped away once again. It's raining. That was the first thing that came out of my mouth when I sat up in bed, propping myself up on pillows. It never rained in Brightwood. I'd been told that my whole life, despite insisting I knew what it felt like cupped in my hands, or as I splashed through puddles. I knew the cold shiver of raindrops sliding down my back, gluing clothes to my skin. I'd been told rain was more of a myth in our small town, and yet my gaze was following a stray raindrop down the glass in my bedroom window. I found myself wondering if it was even real. It doesn't rain in Brightwood, I told my fake mother, who'd been looming over me for who knows how long. I knew she was fake because I'd killed my original mother, and just like our neighbor, Mrs. Jensen, my mom had been replaced with a completely different person. It was strange, feeling my brain being rewritten as my thoughts tangled into alphabet soup. There were certain things they wanted me to remember, and others they wanted me to forget. In this case, it was my mother's murder. A dull pain struck in my back tooth, crawling around the back of my head like a virus. My vision flashed, and I saw myself kneeling over my mom's body with the bloody knife that had pierced her heart. The scene glitched. I had to bite my lip to suppress a screech. Something came apart inside my head, and I was seeing those white corridors once again. This time I was being carried, my unresponsive body draped over someone's shoulder. Then a door flew open, and I was gently placed onto a chair, my wrists strapped down. When I fought against the prodding hands, I was slapped across the face so hard my head lurched back, my thoughts spiraling. Something was placed on top of my head. It felt like a metal crown. With it came those vivid flashes, slicing into my brain. But it was from a perspective I didn't recognize. I didn't know the world around me, or the faceless shadows dancing in overexposed light. It was like they were trying to force someone else's mind inside mine. The flashes of memory seemed to splinter as my mom's lifeless body became Mrs. Jacobs, the woman across the street. And instead of Annalise Duval standing at the door in a wedding dress, it was my mom, or this new mom, in a furry coat. There was just enough detail to wipe away what had really happened, though Annalise's strange choice of clothing had been far too powerful a memory to let go. It hit me at that moment that maybe I was wrong. Just like my classmate who knew too much, who had turned into a shell of herself for asking too many questions. Maybe that was happening to me. Was that why I was glitching? Moreover, why had someone else's mind been plunged into my skull? Ignoring the pain, I focused on my new mom. The woman standing in front of me had my mother's facial structure and strawberry blonde hair, but subtle differences in the way she held herself. Her too big smile were more like a shark grin. She was holding a breakfast tray filled with all my favorites, along with a new addition, a giant chocolate cake covered in candles. My fake mother's smile widened, her reply slightly delayed. "What are you talking about, sweetie? It always rains in Brightwood." Her gaze flicked to the window, and she laughed heartily. This time I had to squeeze my eyes shut to block out an explosion of fireworks in front of my eyes, like a migraine, but worse. It was like I could see them trying and failing to pick my brain apart. I focused on the comically large chocolate cake to distract myself, but that only made me aware of the sudden bouts of hysterical laughter surrounding my room. They were inside the walls, in the ceiling, and under the floor. All around me, suffocating me. I knew the laughter. I had heard it before. I had stood in front of it at one point. But as I tried to reach out for pieces of it, the laughter was plucked away, and I was left writhing in pain. I could feel each of my individual thoughts being cut and sliced into oblivion. As if on cue, following my fake mother's words, the downpour outside grew heavier, and the knot in my gut tightened. "I am so proud of you," she said. "I can't believe it. My daughter, a real murderer." More laughter. This time it pounded in my ears. The pain in my head and mouth grew worse. As my fake mother began to slice the cake into dainty pieces, humming to herself, I turned my attention to the window, to the rain, which I thought would anchor me to the reality I was trying to reach out for. But instead of finding what I was looking for, I felt flashes that didn't make sense. They hurt as if they were wrong, broken, shattered. I could see my fake mom offering me cake as I blinked, my vision feathering. I could feel the weight of the breakfast tray on my knee, smell the aroma of iced tea drifting into my nose. But I was also surrounded by the night and the rain pounding against my hood. The memory cut into me like it didn't belong. And it hurt. It was agony I had to swallow down. The aroma of iced tea and chocolate cake faded, my mom's humming collapsing into white noise as another mind slowly began to take over. I was running. I could sense my footsteps pounding against concrete and my own breath coming out in sharp pants. Except I wasn't scared. I propelled myself faster, slicing through the night, diving into puddles and howling into oblivion. It was a guy. I could sense his bloodthirst, the exhilaration of the hunt running through him. There was a shadow running in front of him, stumbling and staggering. The shadow dived over a wall, falling onto their knees, then jumping back to their feet and taking off like a startled deer. But he was faster. He was stronger, and every time a lamppost illuminated the figure's face, her eyes were wide with a numb fear that only drove her further. A sickening sense of satisfaction filled him. When he drew close enough to grasp the hood of her sweatshirt, the girl was faster. She screamed, and something snapped inside my mind. It was me. My own cry filled the dark, and it only made him laugh harder. It didn't make sense that I was watching myself running from a monster. The memory contorted once more. This time my hands were wrapped around the butt of a baseball bat, teasingly dragging it across concrete before swinging it in a wild arc and making impact. The victim looked maybe a year older. He survived the first swing, throwing himself onto the ground. He was sobbing, begging for his life. But the attacker, the kid whose mind I had found myself in, only swung again, this time feral, like a wild animal. The impact sounded like cracking an egg open. The boy dropped face first onto the ground as the wielder continued hitting him until the kid's brain bled from his ears. Pain struck again, and this time it was bad enough to bring me back to Brightwood. I gasped for breath as I stared down at my hands, which were slick with blood. It pooled onto my bedsheets. I tried to wipe it away, but there was so much of it, painting me in sharp, beautiful, horrifying red. I jumped out of bed, tears filling my eyes, my stomach lurching. My mom was already standing in front of me, still wearing that overbearing smile. When I swiped at my pajamas furiously, the blood disappeared. Agony split my skull apart, the nameless boy's vivid thoughts still playing in my head like a stuck record. I could see myself running for my life, and yet I wasn't me. I was him. I was all of him. His maniacal laughter, the exhilaration and unbridled insanity filling him, poison choking his brain. I didn't realize I was standing in front of my bookshelf. Each spine stood out to me despite being identical. A clockwork orange. Elle? Mom's voice was white noise murmuring in my ear. When I caught her expression in my periphery, my fake mother's smile didn't waver. Whatever was happening to me, she knew exactly what it was.
Baby, are you okay? You've gone pale.
Suddenly, it felt like the walls of my bedroom were closing in, and those walls were hollow. Fake. I needed to get out. I needed to find Annalise and Jonas and go back to the room full of wall people. That was the last time I remembered things making sense. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just feeling a little sick. Those were the words I was supposed to say, the words that were placed on my tongue by the implant. Instead, I had a mouthful of gibberish, like I was choking on vomit. My questions entangled with a scream in my throat, but also with the nameless boy's laughter, which began in my chest and threatened to send me to my knees. Between his hysterical giggles, I had the overwhelming urge to shout my own name. Elle, come on, sweetheart. He had called into the downpour while my shadow bled into the night, screaming back at him. He kept going, catapulting himself over a wall, landing on all fours. I sensed him hitting wet grass. Why are you running from us? His words were like a sour bile I was struggling to swallow, but which kept coming back up. Blinking through blurry vision, I turned away from my fake mother and grabbed a clean shirt and jeans. My hands were trembling, my body racked with a phantom excitement that had filled the boy, as a part of him had latched onto me like a leech. I stood in front of the mirror and smiled my best smile, only for it to split apart into his maniacal grin. I could still sense the puddles beneath his feet and the downpour plastering his thick hair to his face. I'm fine, I managed to tell my fake mother. I'm just feeling sick.
All right, well, come downstairs and eat breakfast. Your friends will be here soon.
Still wearing that ridiculous smile on her face, my fake mother retreated downstairs. Friends? As soon as she was gone, pain erupted at the back of my head. I dropped to my knees, something wet and warm dripping from my nose and ears. I gingerly grazed my fingers over my lips. Bright red. Like I was coming apart piece by piece in favor of whatever, or whoever, had been forced inside my skull. I didn't want to see what he had seen. I didn't want to share my mind with someone else. But Brightwood was feathering away once again, and the dark downpour slamming down on my hood was becoming progressively more real. I could smell the cool night air. A nearby vendor was selling street food. Damp grass beneath my feet. I could hear my own sobbing, pleading, as he drew closer to me. There was no mercy in the way he ran, no faltering. No. My head swam as I scrambled to my feet, two different worlds clashing in my mind. My bedroom in Brightwood and an unfamiliar city street. I knew what I had to do. My gaze flicked to the bathtub, where perfect white had been bleached before, covering up the smears of scarlet she had left. The other me. Before I was Elle. Clinging onto pristine marble and staring at myself in the mirror as blood ran down my face in thick rivulets while pain continued to rack the back of my head. I could escape. That was my only thought. I could escape this. And I had, before. I remember my trembling wrists tightening around a blade, which had cut deep enough for me to lose my breath and let my thoughts wander. I remember sinking in ice-cold water and closing my eyes. And after that, there had been peace. Silence so loud, and yet quiet at the same time. She wanted oblivion, craved it. And so did I. Before I could hesitate, I turned the faucet on, running my hands under the stream of water. Cold. It was perfectly cold, exactly what I wanted. But when I was searching for something sharp, what I knew would help me escape, something snapped inside my head, coming apart and severing. I was partially aware of hitting the lukewarm tiles and of my head slamming into the edge of the faucet. Still, I was somewhere else entirely when my vision cleared. A dimly lit hallway with filthy walls and discolored yellow flooring. The memory was nothing like the flashes of a coffee shop in a downpour, or even a golden room filled with deep, dark red. The perspective trembled as I was being dragged violently, a rough pair of hands pinning my hands behind my back. Tipping my head back, I furiously scanned the hallway for a way out. But there was none. There was only the door at the very end, which was getting closer and closer as I kicked and struggled, my cries choking in the back of my throat. It was a large red door. "What is this?" The voice came from my mouth in a cry, but it wasn't mine. It was guttural and deep. It was a boy from the rain. The boy who had chased me into the night, laughing and splashing through puddles. I was still inside his memory. But this was different. This was more clinical and yet grittier. And instead of feeling an immense sense of sickening pleasure running through me, a mind ravaged with despair he wanted to keep bringing onto himself like his very own personal brand of drug. I was feeling fear. His fear, which was palpable in the way he twisted and contorted in his attacker's arms. And the more his gaze fell on the bright red door, the more his body began to quake, and nonsensical thoughts filled his mind. What the fuck is that? His eyes flashed to the walls, zeroing in on what could only be reddish smears and bodily fluids dripping from cracks and yellowing tiles. I'm going to die, he thought. This is karma, isn't it? This is karma for what I did. Relax, Kane. It's going to be okay. Almost there. The voice didn't reassure him at all, but he did stop struggling, the heels of his Converse scathing the floor. I said I needed help, he whispered in a sharp breath. I said I needed help because I don't know what to do. And this is what you do? This is precautionary. The faceless shadow tightened its grip on the boy's arms. Precautionary? You're a fucking social media app, and you have an underground emergency room? Which... He choked out a laugh. Laughing helped. It made him feel like he was the one in control. Which clearly hasn't been cleaned since 1973. The man chuckled. Huh, you're funny. We like funny. Yeah? Well, answer my questions instead of leaving me in the dark. This shit is shady as hell. The boy scoffed. And can you please loosen your grip? I'm losing all my blood circulation. Seriously, man, if I collapse and die, it's going to be your fault. The man grumbled something, but he did loosen his grip. I'm sure you are aware of what you did, Kane. Here at Darkroom, we offer a certain kind of treatment. And that is where we are going. It is standard protocol for me to restrain you due to the severity of your case. Once Darkroom influencers sign with us, as you have, they are put into the Red Room. The treatment will help you build your career on Darkroom. It's nothing to worry about. Let's call it an interview of sorts. The door was so close, guarded by 2 men. When he squinted, the boy glimpsed something tainting the handle, and shivers rocketed down his spine. Instead of fully registering what he was seeing, he continued to talk, because talking usually, not always, got him out of shit. And this was definitely the type of shit he was eager to get away from. Flexing his wrists, still trapped in the man's grasp, he exhaled a breath. Stall, he thought. I need to stall, and then run. He twisted his head around, scanning the hallway. But there were no doors, no exits. Before the hallway they were currently on, a blindfold had been wrapped around his eyes. Which meant... Slowly, this kid was putting the pieces together. Which means they don't want me to get out, he thought. I could feel the panic brewing in his gut, an insatiable need to get out of there. With nothing but his mouth, he started to talk again, this time stumbling over his words. What kind of treatment? You, say interview, but what kind of interview? Because I actually need to go in like an hour. I just came here for, therapy. Before I turn myself into the cops. The thought blossomed in his mind. That's what I was going to do. And now I'm going to be butchered in some budget YouTube HQ? Reaching the door, 2 guards pulled it open, and the boy immediately stopped struggling. It was a theater of sorts, a large screen bigger than any television I'd ever seen, stretched across the walls, like a movie theater. Instead of seats, there were ancient-looking beds with Velcro straps attached to the armrests, and when he looked closer, blood-spattered sheets and pillows. Someone rushed past, wielding an industrial mop, scrubbing away spots of crimson dotting the floor. There were people in white illuminating the dark, and the screen suddenly flashed a deep, dark red, bathing in the room in the same shade which dripped from each bed. Some of them were occupied, but they weren't moving, propped up on a mountain of pillows. Before he could stop himself, he was tearing from the man's arms and stumbling forwards, something slimy in the back of his throat. His gaze was on one of the beds, where a girl sat with her knees pressed to her chest, her head cocked to the side. It wasn't the girl's vacant eyes that caught his attention. Illuminated in the harsh red light, there was a carnivorous hole at the back of her head. Sim? The name tangled in his mouth, but before he could get closer, those same clammy hands pulled him back. The girl reacted to her name, twitching slightly. She started to turn around, before a figure in white forced her to face the red screen. The boy's emotions came over me, suffocating. His eyes filled with tears, hot, wet, and dripping down his cheeks. He couldn't breathe, couldn't stop staring at her dark hair, soaked in sharp red rivulets beating down the back of her neck. His cry choked my throat, his swelling chest and the ache in his gut, the sudden feeling of drowning. I felt it all. Lunging forward, the boy tried to get to her, trying to think of a way to free her. But then it hit him that she didn't want to be let go. Maybe she had, before entering the Red Room. Now she sat freely with her arms wrapped around her knees, vacantly staring at the screen. His eyes found a second bed, where a boy lay curled up, giggling into blood-stained pillows. "Luke?" He spoke out loud this time, choking on sobs erupting into his throat. What the fuck did you do to them?" "It's the treatment, Kane," the man said cheerily. "And don't mind the mess, by the way. It can get pretty intense inside here." "Mess?" His voice came out in a breathy sob. All he had to do was look at the stainless steel of each bed glittering under harsh red light, every surface stained and painted. No. The boy took a step back, and then another, his head spinning. He swallowed thickly. "I don't want to be here. I want out." His voice cracked. "I don't want the therapy or whatever the shit is. Just get me out of here." Drinking in the red room, the boy was aware of an exit surrounded by guards. But filled with adrenaline and the overwhelming urge to fight, in 4 strides he was at the door, slamming his fists into rusty metal. "Get me the fuck out of here! I didn't even ask for this!" His cry morphed into a strangled scream, a howl of pain, when a second and third pair of arms wrapped around his waist and yanked him back, his fingers slipping from where they had gripped the handle for dear life. "Let me go! Let go of me!" The boy shrieked, kicking and screaming. "You're sick! You're fucking sick! You told me you were going—" His words exploded into another cry when his body slammed into one of the beds, and all the breath was knocked from his lungs, his brain being knocked off its axis. For a moment, he was only aware of the figures in white holding down his squirming hands and kicking legs. "No," he whimpered when his left arm was strapped down, followed by his right. The boy could feel someone else's blood staining the sheets he had been forced onto, and it only drove his thoughts further into hysteria. "Is this because of what I did?" Wrenching against the restraints, he screamed when his head was propped up on a dozen filthy pillows, kicking out his legs to no avail. "If this is because of what I did, I didn't mean to," he sobbed. "There's something wrong with me."
"There's nothing wrong with you,"
a voice crackled through an overhead speaker.
"Red Room is exactly what you need before you become acquainted with us."
When the bed was reclined upwards, and gloved fingers took hold of the back of his head, the screen in front flashed to a deeper shade of red, which caused a visceral reaction in him. He lurched against the pillows, pulling at the restraints, a cry gritting between his teeth. The screen wasn't even a color, more of a consistency, and the more he stared at it. "Hey, dude," a voice murmured. "So, we want you to relax, right? Your interview will start shortly, but first, we need you to really take in the screen in front of you." Gloved fingers tapped the back of his head, stroking through his hair and scalp. "Let's start easy, okay? What does the color remind you of?" Something stirred in the back of his thoughts as the color on the screen slowly started to spread through his mind. I felt it like a virus, like poison filling him up. "I know that voice," his thoughts murmured. "But you're—" The shadow hummed. "Ben? Yeah. It's been a while, Fee. I've heard botched surgeries can get a lot of views. You know, like accidentally splitting the skull open or cutting an artery. But don't worry." His gloved hands patted the boy's head teasingly. "You don't have to worry about me making any mistakes." An explosion of anger filled him, but the boy couldn't move properly, especially when his eyes were on the screen. "You asshole," Kay managed to grit out. "Since when do you work for these bastards?" Ben sighed. You would be surprised how many of your peers are part of Darkroom, Kane. But that is a conversation for later, when the initial stages have been completed. Weakly wrenching against the restraints, he managed to tear his eyes from the pooling, dripping red. What's that supposed to mean? You said you would make me better. His voice was a sharp, frightened cry, nothing like anything I had ever heard. Tugging violently on the restraints, he let out an animal-like shriek. It couldn't be Ben, he thought, because Ben didn't make sense. Ben was the reason why his hands were dirty. Who are you? Really? Why are you doing this to me? Ben ignored him, and the boy could sense him preparing something behind him. Question 1, Kane. What did you do to your father and brother? Something severed inside his mind, and he stopped struggling, his body going limp. I killed them, he said in a shuddering breath. Didn't you see my video? I did, Ben said. It was a masterpiece. You are quite talented in your craft, you know. Question 2, and keep looking at the screen. Why did you film it and upload it to Darkroom? I felt his body start to shake, his chest racking with sobs. The boy's thoughts were dizzy and disjointed while on the red, but he also felt a kind of calm he didn't understand. You can't be here. You're not supposed to be here. Something was blooming inside him, tearing into his thoughts and setting them alight. Despair in its purest form. You know why I'm here, Kane. Ben's voice was suddenly louder, rooted inside his skull. I'm here for the views. Just like you. I hate you, Kane spat, his words slowing into a slur as the red took effect. I thought you were going to make me better. No, trust me. This is helping, Ben murmured, his voice becoming more of a murmur, like ocean waves. Kane's hands felt filthy, still sticky and wrong. Tell me, why did you upload the video of yourself brutally murdering your family to Darkroom? The swimming color on the screen twisted his gut. It made him want to both run and give in to it, letting it swallow him up, enveloping him. Inching back, the boy squeezed his eyes shut for a fraction of a second before opening them, when it hit him. A sudden, unexplainable urge to lash out, to carve into Ben's face with his fingernails and scoop his eyes out of their sockets. But he wouldn't stop there. The sensation filled me, just like it had him. The urge to rip into the boy's flesh and paint himself with his blood. When the screen grew brighter, his body reacted, wrenching and pulling at the restraints to be let go, to escape it. But Kane blinked once and then twice, shaking his head at the thought before it forced its way to the forefront of his mind. Did he want to escape it? Stop! Again. Ben spoke slowly, deliberately, his voice echoing. Why did you upload it? I don't know. How am I supposed to know? The red on the screen was thickening, like it was real. Tell the truth, and this will be easier. Swimming in the screen of red, I felt the boy's lips start to twitch into a smile. For views. Another voice replaced Ben's, and the gloved hands holding the back of his head were rougher somehow. Yes, Kane. You did it for views, the man hummed. You slaughtered your father and brother to get attention. And of course it did. Why wouldn't it? A 16-year-old killing his family and uploading it to TikTok, which is how you found us. You wanted a place where you wouldn't be judged, and you could continue with your filthy habit without consequences. Within 24 hours, your video had surpassed 2 million views and had been shared 70,000 times. His gloved fingers dug into the back of the boy's head. You were at the top, and you felt good. Slowly, the boy's fight was diminishing, and the man's words, along with the screen, were the perfect cocktail to start the conversion of his thoughts. "Yes," he whispered. I did it for views." The boy's gaze strayed on the vicious consistency of red becoming more lifelike. He suddenly felt it on his hands, real and wet, soaking him and painting him. The blood, painting his father and brother. That seemed to snap him out of it, at least for a moment. "Please." Kane tugged at the straps. I know there's something wrong with my head." He started to cry again, but crying felt good. Crying was one step away from whatever he was being dragged into. And whatever that force was, it wasn't giving up. The boy knew he had to anchor himself to one thought. "I didn't mean to do it." No matter what the screen told him, or the man, or that fucking asshole Ben, he didn't mean to do it. Even if it was for views, even if it was for attention, it wasn't a conscious thought to do something like that. The memory was in pieces, but he was vaguely aware of what he had done, and there was no excuse, no attempt to get himself out of it. Which was why he was convinced he was broken. His mind was broken, ravaged and fucked up, and he needed help before he did it to someone else. He flinched when the man stabbed at the back of his head with something sharp. No, don't cry. You're actually the perfect person we have been searching for. Someone who has fully rejected their own humanity for something as pathetic as attention in the form of likes and views. We have seen it, of course. Young people will do anything for a quick fix of attention. But this is different. At Darkroom, we aim to create and raise human beings who do not have that filter that stops us from acting on impulse. Humanity is sick, Kane. Our everyday lives weaken us, and when they turn dull, we turn to killing. Now, he parted the back of our head a little harder. What if we were already desensitized to killing? What if we already knew what it was like to break open a skull and slice a throat? When Kane didn't answer, only letting out a sharp cry when the sharp thing continued to prick at his skull, the man answered himself. I think. He drew out a breath. No. I know. When humanity becomes desensitized to killing, there will be far less crime. Because, young man, if we were to live in a world where killing was considered normal, why would we do it? We kill to release emotion, correct? We kill to rebel against the people in our lives, and we kill because of our pathetic emotions. This time, the boy felt a sharp prick. It wasn't enough to penetrate, it was more of a tease. But he was too busy drinking in the man's words and staring dazedly at the swimming crimson in front of him. Each word entwined inside his mind, and when he was sure that it was bullshit, that it made no fucking sense, his thoughts became viciously tangled, ripping away any rebellion. I think, You are perfect for the Red Room. The time to officially introduce you to our project is now. And you just made things a lot easier by blossoming way before your peers. His words were foggy in the boy's mind. The world will be so much better with your influence, young man. Trust me when I say this. His icy breath tickled our face. You are going to save lives. Lives you will never know, far across the planet. Yes, it will mean taking other lives. But in the grand scheme of things, what you do will be good, and I promise you, 6 or 7 months down the line, you will be enjoying working with us at Darkroom. King let out a spluttered sob. Ben Matthews is dead, he whispered. He was my friend, and You killed him, the man said. I felt his fingers prying open our eyes, replacing them with tiny strips of what felt like tape. Then his hands were on the back of his head once again. He was your first, am I correct? More of a personal fix than the one you uploaded. He was the reason why you started questioning your sanity. But also, the man paused for effect. You began to get an urge to do the same to others. Before King could answer, the man cleared his throat. I will not lie and sugarcoat this for you, he murmured, which made him freeze up, his body pulling and yanking against the restraints. This will hurt. While the Red Room procedure may be seen as inhumane and outdated torture, it creates miracles. Kane whispered, his arms twitching in the restraints. The man's words weren't fully hitting him. He was captivated by the screen, glued to it. But it will make me, better, right? I'll stop feeling like this. I'll stop getting this urge. A pause, big enough for the boy to realize he was going to die, drowning in a sea of red. In a special way, yes. We will make you feel better. After all, what did we say when you signed your contract with us to become a darkroom influencer? That you would protect me. His voice turned whimsical. And make me better. Exactly. Why don't you relax? Just look forward. Can you do that for me? I want to go home. His voice resembled a child, and I felt that childish fear, which was his. It wasn't the choking thoughts suffocating him, telling him to move toward the bleeding screen. It was pure, unadulterated fear. The man stroked the back of his head. Both of us knew something was coming. Kane had seen what happened to Sim, while I was sure a different tactic would be used on him. The two of us, however, this version of him which had been plunged inside my mind, and my presence, knew he was going to die. And it wasn't death which was coming for him. It was much worse. The death of his mind, the rotting of logic and simple things, human things like emotion and memory, empathy, and the ability to feel and understand, going up in flames. At home, you will just do it again, already craving that next fix of dopamine from the next kill. You are not special, you know, Cain. You do not have anything wrong with you. You came to us expecting to be diagnosed with a sickness which runs deep inside you, which made you kill your family. At first, I didn't feel what he did. Until then, I'd been sure his emotions and sensations were entangled with mine while I was deep inside his memory. But there was some kind of delay, or when I thought about it, maybe there was a possibility that his mind didn't want me to see this. Still though, when we did sync up, I felt it like razors slicing into the back of his head. It was exactly like the phantom pain which racked my head, but this time it was real. And he and then I felt every rivulet, every drip, every bead of blood dripping down the back of his neck. His mouth opened in a wide cry, but no sound came out, because whatever it was continued, past impact, past cutting through skull, bone, and muscle. I felt my own mind ricochet from the explosion inside his head. His body trembled against the restraints, and he attempted to lunge forward but was pulled back violently by the man himself, his bloody hands grasping hold of his shoulders. Unperturbed, he continued to speak despite the boy's whimpering cries, driving something, a metal rod, directly inside his skull. But that is not true, Cain. You want answers that I cannot give you. You are perfectly well, and the only thing affecting you right now is maybe jealousy because you are not quite at the top. A second metal rod entered his skull, and this time the boy screamed. Guttural. I felt our body ricochet against the restraints holding us down. His cry was animalistic. Any, and I mean any human being can do what you did. Whether they are insane, completely around the bend bonkers, or a normal functioning child or adult. We are all capable of turning feral, Mr. Sinclair. As he spoke, his fingers tickled the back of the boy's head, fingernails scraping his scalp, which sent the boy into a frenzy, shrieking and screaming. To hunt? The man's tone darkened. It was strangely gentle, reassuring enough to lull the two of us into a false sense of security. It is simply to kill or be killed. Get your hands off me! Managing words gritted through his teeth, the boy let out a howl. You lied. You're not helping me. This is torture. The word choked at his throat when the two rods continued, up and down, eliciting pain I couldn't run away from. Pain I would rather die than endure. Which, the man ignored him, we would like to simulate. Imagine it. A town cut off from the outside world, broadcast across the globe, from the perspective of an average person. Nobody special. Someone the audience will relate to. It's a theory, but I want to know what would happen if we were to strip back moral inhibitions in a world where there are no suffocating societal rules. Just killing. And if seeing that, consuming that, would make us, as a society, less prone to causing violence. His hands made a jerking motion, and Cain retaliated in an animalistic growl, setting him lunging off the pillows. Answer me again. Why did you kill your family? He answered with a screech, blood filling his mouth, his vision filling with the same pulling red on the screen. I don't know! Say it. I killed my brother and my father. I don't know why. The rod was plunged in and out, and it was searing agony, prickling sweat, his body jolting, eyes flickering. The light grew brighter in his eyes, thoughts a vivid hurricane. I deserve this. The words entangled in his mind, choking his tongue. I deserve this. I deserve this. I deserve this. I'm sorry, he spoke out loud, penetrating his own screams. Pushing through the fog, Kane screamed into a growing abyss beginning to swallow him up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Dad. Daniel. I don't know why. I think there's something wrong with my head. That's right, the man said, before leaning over the boy, his face masked in shadow. We would like to thank your father and brother for their participation in your indoctrination. Valued members of our staff. Elias and Daniel have sacrificed themselves and their careers to create you. Somehow, the man's voice pierced through his own screams, and it was enough clarity to keep him holding on. Kane's voice was small, broken, and very slowly becoming the man I knew presently. The monster who killed my family. What the fuck did you just say?